Okay, so thank you very much. So as Harry indicated, so I will wrap my own MTP story around slides I have not made, but I think so that will work quite well. So maybe starting with the first slide. So there are already some important information regarding the module type package on it, I would call it. So first, so what you see is it's around plug and produce, so which is deduced from a plug and play idea, so easy integration of solutions, indicating that it's close to realization. So there are first parts of the standard being released, others are still to come, and that it becomes to get market ready. And so what I particularly like about this initiative is that it's a joint initiative between NAMUR, which is then the end user organization, the ZVEI, which is the Manufacturers Association, and here in particular that we have ProcessNet on board, or actually that ProcessNet is the original driver of this initiative. So these are really the chemical engineers building the plants. So this initiative was not born out of the idea to make automation nicer, but it was born out of the idea to have an automation solution for modularly built plants. So we do not have to convince anyone, but we simply need to keep up with the more ambitious time schedules of new plants there. Okay, so what are market requirements for modularization? So there are various. This comes from aspects like reduced time to market, that you can build plants quicker. So here you can already guess it's a lot also around pharmaceuticals, agricultural products, so where you have to fulfill market needs rather quickly. It's around an increased flexibility, which also includes the reusability of modules. So if you want to change plants, if you want to reuse equipments, and also to some extent around improved efficiency. The picture here indicates, I would say, actually two scenarios which are distinct from modularization. On the one hand side, it's really about functional modules, like a reactor, a column, etc., so that you are functionally oriented, similar to an ISA 88 type of automation, and that you have a PLC then for this, which is readily programmed and being integrated then into a control system. What could also be a use case here is modularization in terms of topology, simply. So these boxes somehow indicate this, and we had this example also that we wanted to build a plant and simply the ground was not ready. So we built modules as large as possible so that you could put them on a ship and bring it to the location and then assembly them finally without really having respect to the function of the individual blocks, but simply from a logistics point of view. And still then you need solutions to easily integrate that. Or a third example would be you buy an additional chiller unit or something like that and you want to integrate it seemingly and quickly. So it's both here for greenfield plants and flexibilization, but also then for the optimization and expansion of brownfields. So going a little bit deeper into the engineering of modular plants. So maybe I should also tell you what an MTP technology-wise is. So it's an automation ML file, so basically XML language, where it is described how things should look like. So a very good example, which is also working by now, is that a module supplier specifies the HMI in terms of this XML language, so how he wants his HMI to look like in a vendor-agnostic format. And then once you integrate that, the engineering tools from a DCS supplier reads this XML file and creates the HMI within its own engineering suite. So the resulting graphic will look like if you did it completely from scratch in the respective engineering tool, and you will not know that it was somehow another source. So the MTP is more a prescription of how to do it automatically within the tools. And since it's XML, of course, then it's freely readable and to some extent also human understandable. So in this engineering phase, you have standard process modules, which includes, on the one hand side, some function like a purification and an MTP, which is this XML file addressing several parts like batch capabilities, like an HMI, like alarming, everything described in terms of this XML. And then if you go into process design, you can think of which functions you need, and then you have the representations in terms of modules and can tie them together here with respect to automation using this MTP technology. What this foresees then here in the operation production phase is that you have an orchestration layer, which is referred to as a process control layer. This would today be a DCS, because simply that is what you have in place. And then you can integrate the different modules into this. The functionalities are a little bit differently split compared to a standard DCS, because here you have PLCs running their own code and they are exposing certain services and functionalities. So here the control system would be more around the HMI, the batch, and the orchestration of the different modules, but the PID loops would not be part then of the DCS. And then in terms of rearrangement, this whole story shall be flexible enough that you can expand, reuse things, etc. This might remind you, and we have also included the MTP on some presentations on the open group and the open group approach and the NAMUR open architecture, because it's splitting first functionalities out of the DCS into an open environment. I can also tell you which problem is not being solved by this is that each module has a PLC and the programming of this PLC is still proprietary. So this is not tackled by this. And if you're talking to an owner-operator about this, so the plant itself, they might still have concerns because engineering is satisfied by a quick integration, but if it comes to lifecycle support, you will still have to call in the original module supplier to change his code because he might be the only one to really understand it. So for this addresses, for example, the features of interoperability as we've just discussed, but there's no interchangeability when it comes to PLCs at that level. Okay, this slide is on the value proposition modularization has for the different stakeholders. So starting here with an increased production flexibility, which is primarily for the plant owner. We can have standardization of equipments, which also is to the benefit of the module vendor in the end. A simplified integration of modules. Here would have also seen a checkbox for the system integrator, but also for the plant owner. So this I would really see today as one of the major automation challenges, especially if also we as chemical producer go more downstream, work more with packaged units, that the integration of those is really a tidy task in building those plants. The module vendor still has his IP protection, maybe even increased IP protection here by these mechanisms, faster engineering, design, installation, and commissioning. And this point here is around offering more automation products in new market areas, so which is especially a check mark for the automation vendors. And I think this is also one key to the success of this whole initiative, so that we had driving forces from all sides. So such an initiative is not very likely to be successful if we have some potential loser on the table. But here, actually, there was, I would call it a win-win situation, because automation suppliers can imagine here to provide simply a market of module suppliers with more automation solution, which was traditionally not the case. So often from these smaller sized companies building the modules, the automation solutions might not have on the very highest levels. And then offering new solutions and business models, so being addressed by all four stakeholders here. So who are involved companies and associations in this? There are parties from controller, remote I/O, automation, DCS, sensors, actuators, and then going to plant owners, module plant, and we also have a lot of universities working in this. So you will find most of the major DCS suppliers, software suppliers, then ZVI, NAMUR, etc., and also a lot of operators from different industry sectors, chemicals, and also Sanofi here from the more pharmaceutical area. So what you won't have here is a lot of oil and gas, for example. So this is good to come together in various initiatives so that you start to merge the different points of use together to bring the best benefit. So this is a little bit more detail on how this is structured. So that here you have the ZVI and NAMUR working groups, the process net working groups here working in parallel, that you have working groups which are working on similar topics and have here a VDI going into the standardization activities. and that here is an active exchange between these modular production initiatives, and which is very important to have all the module suppliers, which are organized here in VDMA organization, also on the table. So now what are the current activities is to go from the specification more into the direction of standardization and finally also into the direction of internationalization. So it had benefits to start this as a German initiative, so probably it was faster, but to make this broadly known, accepted, and also usable for initiatives like OPAF, you need to have this later on as an IEC standard, for example. And this is what is currently going on. I'll go here first. So with the open challenges, so that this is being submitted as a new work item proposal to the IEC to have here internationalization in terms of workshops and exchanges, and then also going into the direction of OPAF. So other initiatives are that such a change of technology needs to be known by the market. So there are various activities like that here, status reports, visiting different fairs, performing joint projects like an ORCA project, which is a Europeanly funded project, working together with safety and IT security, alarm management, etc. So that would be also the remaining work items which need to be covered by the MTP, because nowadays what is mainly available is the HMI specification. This here is also, I would say, quite interesting. So this is a list of existing pilot projects which has been presented at the last NAMUR General Assembly. So first one being coming from the modular bioproduction, where Bayer and ABB cooperated. And here it's around disposable components, so which would be a typical use case then from the pharmaceutical area, leading to a reduced engineering time compared to classical approaches. Then Evonik, Siemens and Yokogawa performed a project around the seamless package unit integration here with the chiller unit, how this can be done more efficiently with an MTP engineered module. And in Merck's smart manufactory, Merck cooperated with B&R and Siemens, B&R now being part of ABB, on modular equipment for flexible production. So also coming from the pharmaceutical area mainly. So this is, again, a little bit on the status of the different parties here, starting with the automation part, and here going to machine part, that we are at the stage of having various prototypes available here, check mark in brackets. So on some of the specification parts, some are yet to come, and so that in 2021, 2022, the standards are finalized, and then also internationalization is on the way, that we can have a full product and project scope here. This here is a table where it's a self-rating, where companies see themselves inside the market model of an MTP. So with the upper half being around the orchestration layer, engineering tools for suppliers, for users, and the runtime for the orchestration layers, and the lower part being the module layer, so really supplying the solutions into the modules itself, with engineering tools, with automation components, and being a module supplier. I've seen also already some characteristics, so like ABB and Siemens, so here you have the full scope. Emerson then seeing here itself more in the orchestration layers, and then also like typical instrument suppliers, of course, being then here in the area of the module supply itself. So, but these slides will be shared with you. So this is on the further part forward, how to challenge and tackle this gap between business routine, so as it's today, and between the digitalization. So obviously here was seen a gap between expectations and available solutions, and how these can touch ground with reality. To fill this into showcases, to merge here the challenges being seen in product supply from plant and process owners and the digital approaches. And then to cooperate here with a network of partners. So universities are a very strong link in these initiatives. And also, for example, we have seen it in the announcement of the collaborators for the open process automation demonstrator. So there we will also work tightly together with the University of Dresden, and to have this in digital plant showcase centers with open IT architectures, integrated engineering tools, and paperless documentation to really make hand-on experiences, and augmented reality also being part of that. Okay, so that was my attempt to present those slides to you. Any questions?